Thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. If you stand by, we're going to wait for some of our viewers to come on, and I'm going to go over here because one thing that we are attempting to do is to go Facebook Live simulcasting both. We've got individuals all over the country, in fact, from overseas especially, as well as here in the United States, who have been watching our broadcast. So I'm going to wait a few seconds for people to populate our Facebook Live and our YouTube Live, and then we'll get right into the broadcast. So if you stand by. In the meantime, we're going to be talking about some breaking news that occurred earlier. In fact, there's two news stories that just broke within the past couple of hours, so I'll certainly be talking about that. It's a sad day, folks. Sad day for the United States of America. Very, very sad day for law enforcement. And I'm going to be explaining to you in a few minutes why it is a very, very sad day. So as we're waiting for our YouTube Live and our Facebook page to populate, I'll share a few things with you. Something exciting, by the way, we are opening up an online store. That should be opening up within the next, I guess the next week or so. And as you know, we do not ask for funding from anybody. We don't ask for donations, but what we do is we do provide information and material and books that we publish for a fee, and that'll be in our store. So next week, I'll give you a little idea on what our online store is all about. And if you'd like to buy some of our books and commentaries, please you'll be more than happy, I'm sure, after you receive these things. Okay, so it's 6:31, folks. So we're going to get on the air right now. Those of you on YouTube, you're allowed, according to YouTube, you can chat with me. Those of you on Facebook, we're now waiting a little bit longer for you to populate. I know I did not advertise that I would be on Facebook, but we decided that we were going to do a few things, not only Facebook, but also YouTube. And we're kind of doing all kinds of now social media platforms because, frankly, folks, I've got to tell you, we have picked up, a real unusual number of viewers. And I'm happy. I'm glad we are. So apparently we are doing something right. All right, so let's get into some of the breaking news within the hour. And I'll explain to you why it is a very, very sad, sad day for America and an extremely sad day for the law enforcement profession. Folks, Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard announced Wednesday that criminal warrants would be issued in connection with the police-involved shooting death of Rayshard Brooks in an Atlanta parking lot. Those criminal warrants, ladies and gentlemen, are being issued for the police officer. The police officer is being charged with felony murder. Could you imagine that? He is being charged with felony murder, not even manslaughter, felony murder. That has run a chill up and down the spine of every single police officer around this country. As we look at the video, and folks, I looked at that video from all angles. I looked at that video with other law enforcement officers. I just wanted to make sure that what I saw, I actually saw. And now, I've been on the news media. By the way, I'll be on Fox News again tomorrow, talking about this latest tragic event, indicting the police officer for felony murder. But I looked at this video as well as others, and I looked at all the talking heads on television. And what I'm finding is that those individuals, like Geraldo Rivera at times, who I like, but he really gets under your skin every once in a while, those talking heads who have never been involved in a police-involved shooting, who have never been trained on a police tactical course that includes a shoot, don't shoot scenario, those are the ones that are actually telling the public that the shooting was not justified. And then you go to the other side of the team of people that I'm working with, law enforcement officers all over the country who have been involved in these scenarios, law enforcement officers who have been trained to deal with these scenarios, including a black sheriff from the middle of the country, clearly stated that shooting was justified. And so it boils down to this, folks. It boils down to looking at reality and actually process what we saw. But you see, it didn't end at the shooting. It didn't end at the crime scene because there was another crime that was committed. And not too many people want to talk about that crime, but I'm going to talk about it tonight. Now, before I continue, when I look here, folks, I'm on YouTube Live. When I'm looking here, I'm looking at you on Facebook Live. Just so you know, I'm not turning my head for any other reason but that. So here's what goes on. And I'm probably repeating myself again, but it needs to be heard because I've gotten so many emails and calls from people. They don't understand exactly what went on. So they want a veteran police officer to explain it, and I will, but I'll also explain to you the other crime. Because there's another crime that the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about. And that crime was committed before our eyes. But let's talk about the first crime. A crime not committed by the police officer who was indicted today for felony murder, but a crime that was committed by a fleeing felon. I'm tired of hearing people say, well, Mr. Brooks was a victim. Folks, nobody likes to see anybody die. No police officer gets up and wants to be involved in any kind of shooting and killing someone during the course of an arrest. Nobody wants that, especially cops. But I'm tired of hearing that this individual is the victim and the cop is the felon. But that's how it turned out. So the police get a call from Wendy's. And Wendy says they got a guy in a car sleeping, blocking traffic, whatever. Nothing of a great event, correct? So the police respond. Now, here's what we saw on camera. Here is what you and I and the entire planet saw on camera. In a very calm, professional manner, the police officers approach the car. They look at the suspect, and apparently they have reason to believe he's under the influence of something, alcohol, drugs, or whatever. So they get him out of the car, and they give him a sobriety test. So the fleeing felon decides that he isn't going to stand for this. So when the police officers place him under arrest and go to handcuff him, he begins to fight. Now, there's a reason, folks. There was a reason we discovered why he fought, and we're going to share with that you in a minute. But let's continue with the real live scenario that all of us saw. So before the police officers could get their handcuffs on him, he fights them. He punches them. He kicks them, spits on them, does everything he could to get away. Finally, he grabs a weapon. And those individuals who call themselves experts, who say that the taser gun is not a weapon, folks, when you're a police officer, everything is a weapon. You see that? I used a pen yesterday. Well, see a pair of glasses? This is a weapon. I could take this and I could gouge your eye out with this if I get close enough. So now you got a guy you try to arrest. He punches, he kicks, he does everything he could to break away. He breaks away with a police officer's weapon. Now he's running. The police officer's in pursuit. The fleeing felon turns around and fires. He unloads that weapon towards the police officer. So what does the police officer do? Now he's in fear of his life. So he decides to open fire on the guy. And unfortunately, the suspect got killed. So who escalated this? Who escalated what was going to be a DWI arrest and ended up in a police-involved shooting and the death of the suspect? It certainly wasn't the police. So who? It wasn't the Wendy's people. So who escalated this? Who escalated this was Mr. Brooks, the fleeing felon. So now you got a situation where police officers in fear of his life because somebody decides that somebody, this fleeing felon, to unload a weapon on him, and it ends in a tragic shooting. So that was the first crime. Now here's the second crime. The second crime, in my view, in my opinion, and I call this a crime, was committed by the mayor of the city of Atlanta. Because that mayor went up on stage, screen, and television, and before this officer was given due process, before he was given the opportunity to at least have a full investigation into what occurred, she declared him guilty and fired him. Declared him guilty, declared the shooting unjustified, and fired the man. Guilty. Guilty as charged, folks. That's what we do in America today. That's what politicians do. They want to find anything that's politically expedient to help their political agenda. And believe me, the way the atmosphere was in Atlanta that night, she just went off and said, he's guilty. We're going to put him in jail. We're going to send him away. That was the second crime. The third crime is what we got today. When the investigators, it must have been the GBI or whatever, declared that this was not a justified shooting, and they indict the cop. They indict the police officer for felony murder. Not even manslaughter, felony murder. In my view, he was indicted for felony murder because of what's going on in the streets. In my view, this has now become a political witch hunt. And I'm hoping and praying to God that there's some sensible people on a jury when this police officer goes to trial and they find him not guilty. But I'm going to ask you this question, folks. I want you to think about this. After the mayor went up there and declared this guy guilty, is this cop going to get a fair trial? How do you get a fair trial, folks? How do you get a fair trial anywhere on the face of the earth right now if you were this police officer? How does he get a fair trial? If somebody can answer that question, because when the jury selection is going to take place in Atlanta, you've got to be dense, you got to be dumb, you got to be a complete idiot if you're going to tell the attorneys that you know nothing about this case. And if you tell the attorneys you know nothing about this case, they're the last people you want on a jury because they got to be dumb. So now you have a scenario where a police officer feels his life is in danger. The fleeing felon has a weapon and fires at him. And of course, there are people who say it wasn't a weapon, that he wasn't within a certain distance of the police officer. Folks, I was involved in 38 years. I was involved in one horrific shooting. And that resulted in a death of someone. So all of these armchair generals and Monday morning quarterbacks that have never been involved in something like that, they need to go back on the field and quarterback, and they need to sit in their armchair for the rest of their life. They know nothing. They know absolutely nothing. What we have the leisure and pleasure of seeing on a video, we could replay, we could take weeks to discuss it, we could take months to discuss it, as do other people. But that was a split-second decision. And what goes through my mind is this. Did that fleeing felon believe that he had in his hands a gun? We'll never know. But there is a reason why he fled. There is a reason, folks, why he fled that the mainstream media is not talking about. I'm going to read to you the reason. The reason why he fled, folks, is because, according to the Daily Caller and other news reports, he was on probation. The charges to which Brooks pleaded guilty and for which he was still on probation dated back to 2014 when he was convicted on 4 counts: false imprisonment, simple battery, family battery, battery simple, and felony cruelty to children. So this is the fellow. This is the individual that unfortunately, and I'll always use the word unfortunately when someone is involved in a death, but this guy was no angel. Felony cruelty to children, false imprisonment, probation. And you know what, folks? That's why he ran. He was on probation. And if he got in trouble with the police over a DUI, he'd go back to jail for a long time. He should have been in jail. He should have been in prison. And that's the problem with this criminal justice system. And I hear it from law enforcement officers all over the country. Bail reform. Go abuse somebody, beat someone. Go ahead. You'll be arrested, and you know what's going to happen to you? You're going to be arrested, you're going to be brought to police headquarters, and 10 or 15 minutes, you're back out on the street to do what? Commit a burglary, to beat someone, to sell drugs, to buy drugs, maybe to shoot a cop. That's right, folks. I'm not dramatizing, I'm not exaggerating. You could certainly look this stuff up for yourself, and what I'm looking for here is proof. I always like to, when I articulate some positions, like I just did regarding bail reform, I like to bring evidence. You know, when you're a cop your whole life and you work for military intelligence, you always like to have evidence because there's going to be somebody out there, somebody viewing, who's going to say, "Oh, well, you know, this guy, this cop was wrong, and the poor man that was shot." Yes, anybody who gets shot and killed, believe me, I do feel bad. They've got family members, they've got kids, maybe they've got a mom, a dad, but I always balance it out by saying, who created this? Who escalated this situation? So let's get back to the wonderful Democrat socialists. And believe me, the Democrats in this country today are socialists. They support a socialist agenda, and they're going to take a beating. It's like I've said quite often, I don't understand why the police unions, some around the country, support Democrat socialists. And what about the teachers unions? They're going to take a heck of a beating. They supported Phil Murphy, our governor in New Jersey, and now Phil Murphy is going to do a number on them. Well, you know what? You asked for it. You deserve what you get. A man once said to me, people deserve the government that they elect to office. So maybe instead of sympathizing with everybody, maybe I should just take that position and say, yeah, you deserve what you get. Unfortunately, those of us who are conservatives and who believe in the Constitution, unlike our governor, and who believe in law instead of lawlessness, unfortunately, we get dragged down the drain with these people. But let's talk about bail reform, all right, folks? Listen to this one. Folks, this is going to, look at, I hope you've got a seatbelt on. I hope you have tranquilizers. I hope you got something to calm you down, because this is going to light you up, folks. I'm telling you, this is going to light you up. But this is to my point about letting bad people out of jail. Listen to this. If you don't know, apparently last night, there was a 92-year-old woman, folks, 92, God bless her, with a cane and I believe with a walker in New York City, walking down the street. You know, the city where they disbanded plainclothes detectives, the city where they disbanded crime prevention units and crime units that do what? That collect intelligence and information on terrorists. It doesn't matter that New York City is the #1 terrorist target on the face of the earth. What matters is, folks, is a Democrat socialist agenda to defund to the tune of $1 billion from the city of New York. To do what? To send social workers, you know, mental health workers, to scenes of these crimes, like domestic violence. And I explained it to you last night. These people have no idea what a cop goes through when he goes into a domestic violence situation. And I'll illustrate it again. I've been asked a million times to illustrate on national television what I illustrated last night, so I'll do it again for the sake of those who have no idea. So you get a 911 call. People hear screaming in the house next door. Sounds like the husband is beating the wife. And I use husband beating wife because most of the time, you get these maniac, idiot muscle men slapping their wives around. I just wish some of these wives would learn some martial arts and teach them a lesson. But anyway, so you get a call, and then, as with a standard procedure, on your way as a police officer, you ask the police dispatcher, are there any weapons in the house? Because we do have a record in our police headquarters of every police department in the country. So what house has weapons in it? And the answer is yes. Guy has a registered pistol. Now, as a police officer, your mind is racing, because 9 out of 10 times these domestic violence incidents get very, very bad and they go terribly wrong. So now you pull up. If you're the first officer who pulls up, you dare not go near that door. You wait for your backup, and they get there pretty quick. So now you got 2 or 3 officers at the door, and you hear screaming. You hear the woman screaming. You hear the guy yelling, I'm going to kill you. Now you're thinking, we better get in there. If he has that gun, he's going to unload it on her. And we better get in there with our guns drawn, because he may unload that gun on us. This is not a TV show like Live PD and Cops. I'm sharing with you what goes on. So most of the time, the door is locked, so you got to break the door down. So now he's got a warning. Now he's ready. Now he is ready to blow your brains out the second you go through that door. You kick the door down, you run in. And what do you see? Well, he's got a gun that's on the table, but he's shaking his wife. So now we get involved. One officer grabs the gun, and two of us go and we grab the man. Now, how do I know about this illustration? Because this is one that I was on years ago. So we grab the man, and he's tussling and he's fighting with us. The wife gets up, and she's trying to run away, which the other officer's trying to comfort her, but she don't want to run away from us. She goes and gets something off of her fireplace and starts to strike at the police because we're roughing her husband up. Folks, this is what goes on. So this is what we go through. In a case like that, they both get arrested. They both go down to police headquarters. At that time, you go to jail until you cool down. Now you get to go back to your house after 10 minutes, and you get to beat the living daylights out of each other again. It's called bail reform. Democrat socialist policy. So anyway, here's what Mayor de Blasio and others are proposing to do, folks. Here's what Mayor de Blasio is proposing to do. And I'll get to this thing that's going to blow your stack. So anyway, they want social workers and mental health clinics to go to these domestic violence scenes. So now you're going to have, instead of us, who can save your life, and I believe we did save that woman's life, you got to knock at the door. Sir, could you please stop yelling? Sir, would you open your door? Now, the door's locked. So how are they going to get in the door? Oh, gee, we better call 911. We better call the police because there's something going on in there and we can't get in there. So they call 911. Oh, we don't have the cops. We did away with them. You replaced them. You got to take care of the situation. So all of a sudden the door opens. Oh, thank God the door's open. Sir, can we talk to you about what's been happening here? And so the guy grabs the social workers and starts slapping them and beating the living daylights out of them. Now, folks, of course, this is an illustration. This did not happen. But this is exactly what will happen. You're dealing with violent offenders. And I've got to tell you, I've been on domestic violence calls where people are in front of the police just talking very nicely. And then a third party comes out of the room and you're involved in a major, major confrontation where there could be loss of life if you're not prepared to deal with it. So this is what's going to happen, folks. This is what is going to happen. Now, when you do away with your plainclothes police officers, your ability in your anti-crime units, your ability to gather intelligence is gone. You know what they're used for, folks? Many times when you have these rioters and these protests, you have the plainclothes officers blend in with the violent protesters. And their job is to identify the leaders, and the police go in and quietly arrest them. And then things calm down because the leader's gone. But no. We are removing the police, not the violent protester, not the ringleader who's causing all the firebombing, etc. So that's exactly what's going on and where we're headed in this country. Now, let's get back to this bail reform. This is great, folks. Not this, but I'm being a little bit of, let's just put it this way. You get it. So here's what happened. So a 92-year-old lady is walking down the street in Manhattan. All right. So this bum, that's the only way you could describe it. He's a thug. All right. This punk, I think he's in maybe his teens or 20s. So he's passing by the 92-year-old woman, and you could get it on video. You could see it. As he passes by, he smacks her and throws her to the ground. This poor woman, got a little shopping bag. She's on a cane and walker. 92 years old, for goodness sakes. Saw World War II. Saw probably every relative she had die. Her husband died. Her kids died. 92 years old, and this punk had to push her down. Well, here it goes, folks. You ready? You think that's going to boil your blood? Because you know what? You're doing what I was doing when I first read this, thinking this could be my mother. Anyway, well, folks, they got the guy. The New York City Police Department, what's left of it, got the guy. The man arrested for randomly attacking an elderly woman in New York City last week, it happened last week, I'm sorry, not last night, is a registered, get ready, get your seatbelt on, folks. I'll tell you, this is going to blow your mind, is a registered sex offender who has been arrested more than 100 times. This bum, this thug, arrested more than 100 times, and he's still out on the street, and he is a registered sex offender. So they let the guy out to do what? God knows what else he did, what other crimes he has committed before he pushed this poor 92-year-old woman to the ground. Well, I got to tell you, folks, if I was the son, daughter, or relative of this 92-year-old woman, I better be careful what I say, right? Right? I'd have a counseling session with him. Fact. Hopefully he'll go to jail, and maybe some of the other prisoners will have a counseling session with this guy, right? Or if you're actually living in the city of New York, hey, he may be lucky. He's actually in the city of New York, so the social workers and the mental health people will come and tell him, look. So now you're only arrested one more time. Instead of being arrested 100 times, it's 101 times. Don't worry about it. The way things are, you'll be arrested in the city of New York 500 times. Now, I know I'm being a little sarcastic tonight, but folks, yeah, I got to tell you, it's really insane. But I know that what I'm saying are the things you want to say. And the emails I've gotten said, gee, please, thank you for articulating and expressing the things we want to say. That's why I like this broadcast. I don't do this on national TV. You know, I guess I could say I let my professional mode get in, and I get all these like tanked up feelings like you do inside, but I keep it to a civil level so that people can learn a lot more than just some of the things that I'm sharing tonight. So here's what I tweeted out tonight. This caused a bit of a controversy based on the emails and the messages that I'm getting from the Democrat Socialists and other people who are upset over my tweet. By the way, I'm proud of my tweets. I like my tweets. And you know what? I'm proud of the president's tweets. I'm proud of President Donald J. Trump's tweets. Anything wrong with that, folks? Anyway, here's what caused the furor tonight. I wonder if the time's on here. Oh yeah, at 4:07 p.m., folks, I tweeted this out. This caused a lot of heartaches to some people. I tweeted out, here is the signal to cops across the country to seek a new job. Atlanta police officer now faces felony murder charges. Cops should now employ tactical retreat. I'm going to explain that to you in a minute. Cops should now employ tactical retreat when confronted with violent situations. And those in the academies, leave. Get out of those police academies. Get the heck out of them. You don't want to be a cop. I thought I would never, ever in my whole life say that. 38 years, honorably, on a police force. Serve with the greatest heroes on the face of the earth. Right? Serve with the greatest heroes on the face of the earth. But if your son or daughter's in a police academy, tell them to get out. Tell them to get out. Tell them to find another job. I've told young men and women who are cops, their dreams were like my dreams. You know, you become a police officer not for the pay. In a lot of places, it's not that good, especially in New York City. You come because you want to serve. You want to be there when people need you. But now, folks, it's a whole different ballgame. So what is tactical retreat? Well, I'll tell you what it is, folks. And I've been talking to cops for the past 2 weeks about tactical retreat. So now when police officers come on the scene of a crime that could become violent, he could legally, or she could legally retreat. All they got to do is articulate they're in fear of their life, and they could retreat. They don't have to engage the suspect right away. They could retreat, look for cover, and wait for the felon to fire the first shot. Now, of course, the bad part about it is that felon may fire the first shot at a victim or fire the first shot at the officer and hit its mark. But if you, as a police officer, fire the first shot, you may end up in a situation where that Atlanta police officer is tonight. Because if you're in fear of your life and you do what this officer did, you may get life. So tactical retreat, it's legal, it's proper procedure. Officers are trained for a tactical retreat. So all over the country, you're probably going to be seeing the crime rate spike like it has in Los Angeles. By the way, the Democrat Socialists have done such a fine job in Los Angeles with going to redeploy police officers to fund and meet the needs and the wants and desires of the socialists that are now running that city. The crime rate's up 270%. Burglaries, robberies, street crimes. Seattle, crime rate's up. By the way, the Seattle City Council are negotiating an agreement with these anarchists. They said that if they take down the temporary roadblocks that are not allowing police to come in, the city of Seattle, they're going to build a wall for them. Now, of course, I'm using the word wall, all right? But it's a fact. It's a fact, folks. The city of Seattle, that is now overrun by anarchists, but being governed by Democrat socialists, they're going to build concrete barriers that they could use as a wall. Now, listen to this one, folks. I'm going to run a little over the time because I got to get this out. So the chief of police, who probably was slapped around a little bit by the mayor, gets on national television and says, well, you know, we've got things under control. This is not a police-free, cop-free zone. This CHOP, or whatever they want to call it, a completely different nation now that we have in Seattle. But we, the police, we're here. We're here. Now, as she's saying that, there is an auto shop dealer, auto shop owner, on another network saying, as the police chief is saying this, he's saying you can't get any cops here. Now she's saying it's okay, the cops are there. He's saying you can't get cops here, and as proof, folks, behind him is a fire. And you know what's on fire? His business is burning down to the ground. He said he called 911 5 or 6 times, and the last time they told him, look, we don't have any cops. Maybe we'll get there next week. Something like that. And the police never showed up. And the fire department never showed up. But you know who showed up? The anarchist. Passing out flowers. Remember, the mayor says they're having a love fest. A love fest. Remember back in the 70s, many of you around my age, there were love fests, Woodstock. People taking drugs, getting high, taking LSD, jumping off of buildings, thinking they were Superman. Well, they got love fests going on now in Seattle. But there are reports of crimes being committed in that cop-free sovereign state called CHOP. I got to tell you something, folks. President Donald Trump knew, he knew, as many of us who have been working our entire life in law enforcement, especially I've had the honor and privilege of working my entire life with U.S. military intelligence. We know how to get intelligence. We know how to get information. We've got sources that never go away. We have a lifetime network of pretty intelligent people. But you don't have to be intelligent to see what's going on. You don't have to be intelligent to understand what's happening to our country. You have to be able to use common sense. And you have to be able to look at reality in the face and say, you know what? Our country's in trouble. The police officers have been demonized and villainized by Hollywood and by Democrat socialists and by everybody you can imagine. Why anybody would want to be a police officer today is beyond me. So once again, if you're a young cop, and I know a lot of you young cops watch this, I know that. Believe me, I know it's in your blood. Your whole life's dream was to become a police officer. You might want to leave. You might want to leave. And I've heard this from teachers, by the way. Teachers don't teach anymore. They can't. We got some of the best equipped, best minds in education in America. And they can't. They're not allowed to teach. Why? Because the Democrat socialists now have state mandates. So instead of teaching civics and American history, you get the opportunity to learn about Marx and Stalin and the virtues of socialism. That's a fact, folks, and I can prove that. But before I go off on a tangent, I've had some other things to talk about tonight, but I think this is enough. I try to limit it to a half hour. I'm going to ask you to share this, to do whatever you could to get the word out. That's all we ask you to do, to participate in what we call our Campaign for America. I'll be going to Florida as soon as the lockdown, we're still locked down. We're still in jail here in New Jersey. Yeah, the governor of the state of New Jersey, another Democrat socialist. He's allowed to go out and march freely without a mask and run around with all these protesters. And we got people starving to death. They can't feed their kids. Their businesses are closing down. You can't have a high school graduation. You can't have a college graduation. By the way, I got nailed today, folks. I did. This is the truth. I got nailed today by the mask police in a Barnes & Noble. I did. I went into Barnes & Noble, walking around, looking at some books, decided to get a cup of coffee. So I buy a cup of coffee. So I have the mask on. Now I'm stuck. I'm in a dilemma. I'm going to commit a crime here in New Jersey. if I, this is no, I'll tell you, it is laughable. Maybe we can lighten these up a little. But this actually happened to me. So I go to the second floor of Barnes & Noble, and I scope the place out. Now I'm a criminal, all right? I'm looking around like criminals do. Nobody around. I lift the mask up, and I'm trying to drink it. I can't. Sometimes I think you got to breathe now, right, to drink something. So I figure, let me put the mask down. There's nobody around. So I take a sip. I've had my caffeine. I've had my coffee. Folks, no kidding. All of a sudden I hear, hey, you put that mask on. We have rules and regulations. You got to have that mask on. I'll tell you, folks, I wanted to put my hands up. But this woman starts yelling at me. The masked police at Barnes & Noble. I got caught. I'm guilty. Absolutely guilty, folks. So now I think I'm going to have to go buy a mask with a hole in it so that I could get a straw from the coffee people and sip coffee through that little hole. This is how ridiculous this has gotten. So that's about it, folks. So look, if you've missed this broadcast, I see a lot of you coming on now. Please, you want to watch it. You want to watch it, folks, because there was some real serious stuff we were talking about. 3 crimes that were committed, not one, in Atlanta. And I like the idea that I was able to, hopefully, with some humor, but it really happened, end this broadcast. All right, folks, please, I always say, and I always close with this, there's a God above. Pray for our country, our president. Pray for our police officers across this country. And yeah, pray for the minorities. Pray for all of us, but the minorities especially, they take a beating, folks. They're good people that are living in some of these horrible places like Chicago, where the minorities are seeing their kids getting shot up on their way to school, becoming victimized by economic crime. By the way, compliments of the Democrat socialists. Like I said last night, it's not a coincidence that all these cities we're having trouble in are run and managed and supervised by Democrat socialists. That's a fact. You can look that up. But getting back to my closing, just keep everyone in prayer. There's a God above. He doesn't stop answering prayers. And remember, our purpose in life, folks, our purpose is to love and glorify God forever. That's it. Thank you here on Facebook. And what I'd like you to do is share this. We're going to put this up on a watch. Maybe now, maybe later, but we will put this up on a watch because we get a few thousand views when we do that. YouTube, thank you. We're getting a lot more viewers each time we're on, and we're going to maybe do this a little bit more. We're going to have more camera equipment coming in here. I'll be on 6:30 tomorrow night, and tomorrow night on 11 o'clock on Fox News. And during the course of the day, I know on Friday, Newsmax and One American News, so we're going to be hitting all the news circuits. All right, that's it, folks. Thanks so much. So now what I'm going to do is, let's start here. I'm going to end the stream right here on YouTube Live, and then I'm going to go here.